This was a table that came from a log. I've got this uncle-in-law Phil that got an Alaskan mill attachment for his chainsaw. While visiting him, we tested it out for the first time. The chainsaw he had wasn't very long, so he grabbed a small cedar he cut down about a year or two earlier, and then he gave this Alaskan chainsaw mill its first milling session. Due to the size and curve of the log, we were only able to get about one slab out of it. Right out of the middle, right down the gnarly, twisted pith of stress and anguish. I brought the slab back home and let it sit and dry for about another year. The camera doesn't really do this justice, but this thing was really twisted. Again, pith of death. I figured I could probably get a little tabletop out of it if I split it in thirds and joined them side by side. So that's what I did. I cut it in thirds and then I started the flattening process. I ran them through the table saw using a longer straight board as a guide to get one relatively straight side on each of the boards. I don't have a joiner, so I headed up the street to Nunley Woodworks wood shop and borrowed his to get two sides surfaced and squared. Then I brought them back to my shop to finish the cleanup. The middle board required two flat edges, so I ran this piece one more time through the table saw. From there, I pulled out my little planer to finish the milling process. For the glue up, I borrowed a dowel centering jig, another tip of the hat to Nunley Woodworks, and marked across the boards to line up where I would drill the holes for the dowels. I did a dry fit with the dowels to make sure everything was lining up correctly. After I knew it was good, I glued up one edge and on the inside of each of the dowel holes. It took a little pressure to get them back together, but the fit was snug and perfectly smooth. I repeated the process for the third piece and then clamped it up. After allowing it to dry overnight, I got to work on the insect and knot holes. I used some West Systems epoxy with some tint to fill the holes. These things would not fill. For 3 days I was pouring epoxy down these holes. Finally, I gave up, added a drop or two of some 5-minute epoxy, and then just topped them off with the tinted West Systems. There was another rotting section that I stabilized the same way, and I used a torch to bring the air bubbles to the surface so they would pop. My sander did a good job for the most part cleaning up all the epoxy overpours, but it was taking too long, so I went a little further up the road to Dreammaker's wood shop and used their planer, which was wide enough to handle this little tabletop. He also let me use his Festool sander while I was there, and oh my gosh, so smooth, so smooth. Back at the shop, I needed to clean up the edges, so I used my radial arm saw and maxed it out. A circular saw could have also done the trick. For the finish, I added 4 coats of an oil urethane blend. As the finish was drying, I added a little spray shellac to the hairpin legs for a little added protection. Because of the live edges, it was slightly tricky to get the legs in place square with each of the others. I used some straight edges and compound squares to ensure the legs were evenly spaced from the edges and square with each other. I pre-drilled and screwed the legs in place, and that was it. It turned out to be a cool little table. Being that it came from the first wood cut on a new saw attachment, I did the right thing and I gifted the table back to Phil and his family. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to check this out, and we've got many more videos coming soon. Thanks again for watching.